Park Ji-hoon's hand crushed the whiskey glass so hard it shattered. Blood dripped onto the mahogany table, but he didn't feel it. He hadn't felt anything in 3 years. Not pain, not pleasure, not even the burning amber liquid he'd just thrown back. His business associates froze mid-sentence, staring at the blood pooling between contracts worth millions. But Ji-hoon's eyes were locked on the stage below, where a woman with skin like polished bronze moved through purple light, and for the first time since the poison stopped his heart, something in his chest roared back to life with such violence it terrified him. Hello besties, Happy New Year! Welcome to Afro-Korean Stories. Please like, share, and subscribe. Also turn on the notification button so you won't miss out on more intense stories like this. 3 years ago, Park Ji-hoon and Lee Min-jae had been kings of Los Angeles. Young, powerful, untouchable. They'd built their empire together from nothing. 2 Korean-American boys who'd grown up in the same neighborhood, survived the same streets, and carved out territory that stretched from the ports of Long Beach to the warehouses of downtown. They were brothers in everything but blood, sharing profits, sharing risks, sharing a bond that most people spent lifetimes searching for. The poison had come on a Tuesday night. A business dinner with associates from San Francisco, men they'd worked with for years. The whiskey had been expensive, aged 20 years, poured from a bottle that cost more than most people's monthly rent. Ji-hoon and Min-jae had toasted to their continued partnership, their glasses raised in a gesture they'd made 1,000 times before. Within 10 minutes, both men were on the floor, convulsing. Within 20 minutes, they were in ambulances racing towards Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. Ji-hoon's heart stopped twice on the way. Min-jae's stopped 3 times. The doctors managed to restart them both, managed to flush enough of the toxin from their systems to save their lives, but the damage was already done. The poison had attacked their nervous systems in ways the medical teams had never seen before. It didn't kill them, but it stole something more precious than life itself. It stole their ability to feel. No emotions. No physical sensations. Nothing. They could function, could think, could make decisions, but they were hollow shells walking through a world that had lost all color, all texture, all meaning. The first month after the poisoning, Ji-hoon had tried everything to feel something, anything. He'd hired the most beautiful women money could buy, hoping desire would break through the numbness. Nothing. He'd gotten into fights, let men hit him, hoping pain would register. Nothing. He'd stood at the edge of rooftops, hoping fear would kick in. Still nothing. Min-jae had taken a different approach. He'd gone to specialists around the world, spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on treatments and therapies. Acupuncture. Medication. Experimental procedures. The answer was always the same. The damage was permanent. They would spend the rest of their lives as observers in their own bodies, going through the motions of living without actually feeling alive. They'd adapted. What choice did they have? The business still needed running, the empire still needed managing. So they put on their expensive suits, attended their meetings, made their deals, and pretended that everything was fine. Most people couldn't tell the difference. They were still powerful, still dangerous, still commanded respect and fear in equal measure. But inside, they were dead. Until tonight. Ji-hoon stared down at his bleeding hand, watching crimson drops fall onto the white contract pages, and felt his heart hammering in his chest. Actually hammering. The sensation was so foreign, so overwhelming after 3 years of nothing, that he thought he might be having a heart attack. His skin felt too tight. His clothes felt too warm. Every nerve ending in his body was firing at once, sending signals to his brain that he'd forgotten how to process. Beside him, Lee Min-jae had gone completely still. His hand gripped the edge of the table so hard his knuckles had turned white. His breathing was coming fast and shallow, like he'd just run a marathon. Color had flooded into his normally pale cheeks. And his eyes, usually flat and emotionless, were wide with something that looked like shock and hope and terror all mixed together. On the stage below, the woman continued to dance, completely unaware that she'd just performed a miracle. The bass thundered through Velvet Sanctuary, the most exclusive nightclub in downtown Los Angeles. Purple and blue lights swept across the main floor where hundreds of bodies moved to the rhythm. But up here in the private VIP booth on the second floor, the world had stopped spinning. The men who'd been discussing territory disputes and profit margins with Jehun and Min-jae exchanged confused glances. One of them, a stocky man with graying hair named Chin, cleared his throat nervously. "Boss Park, are you alright? Should I call for medical attention?" Jehun couldn't answer. His eyes were glued to the stage, to the woman whose presence had somehow broken through 3 years of numbness. She wore a simple black outfit that hugged her curves, her natural curls falling around her shoulders as she moved. There was something different about her dancing, something that set her apart from every other performer he'd seen in this club over the past 3 years. She moved like she was telling a story with her body, graceful, confident, but with an innocence in her eyes that didn't match her surroundings. She wasn't performing for the crowd's approval. She was dancing for herself, lost in the music, in the moment. And every movement sent another jolt of sensation through Jehun's body. Heat spread from his chest outward, racing down his arms, his legs, pooling low in his belly in a way that made his breath catch. His pants tightened uncomfortably. He felt everything. The texture of his shirt against his skin. The cool air from the ventilation system. The sticky warmth of blood on his palm. The thundering of his own pulse in his ears. God, he could feel his pulse. Min-jae, Jehun's voice came out rough, barely above a whisper. "I know." Min-jae's response was equally hoarse. "I feel it too." Their eyes met across the table. 3 years of shared suffering, shared numbness, shared desperation crystallized in that single look. They'd tried everything to feel alive again. Spent fortunes. Consulted experts around the world. Resigned themselves to living as empty shells. And now this woman, this stranger whose name they didn't even know, had accomplished what millions of dollars and the best medical minds couldn't. She'd made them feel again. The song ended. The woman on stage took a small bow as the crowd erupted in applause. Then she disappeared backstage, leaving Jehun and Min-jae staring at the empty space where she'd been, both of them terrified that the moment she left their sight, the numbness would come crashing back. Jehun grabbed his phone with his bleeding hand, not caring that he was smearing blood across the screen. He pulled up his security chief's number and typed out a message with shaking fingers. "The new dancer. The one who just performed. Bring her to the VIP room. Now." The response came back within seconds. "Yes, boss." Jehun set down his phone and looked at the men around the table. Chun and his associates were watching him with barely concealed alarm. The blood, the broken glass, the way both Jehun and Min-jae had completely checked out of the meeting, it all added up to a situation that made everyone nervous. "We're done for tonight," Jehun said, his voice steadier now. "We'll continue this discussion next week." Chun opened his mouth as if to protest, then seemed to think better of it. "When Park Jehun dismissed you, you left. No questions asked." The men gathered their papers and briefcases, bowing respectfully before heading toward the elevator. As soon as they were gone, Min-jae stood and moved to the railing that overlooked the main floor. His hands gripped the metal barrier, and Jehun could see them trembling. "It's still there," Min-jae said quietly. "The feeling. It's not going away." Jehun joined him at the railing, his own hands shaking just as badly. "What if it only works when we can see her? What if the moment she leaves, we go back to being?" "Don't." Min-jae's voice was sharp.
"Don't say it."
"Don't even think it." They stood in silence, both of them breathing hard, both of them processing sensations they'd forgotten existed. The music from the club washed over them. Jehun could actually hear it now, really hear it, not just process it as background noise. He could feel the bass vibrating through the floor, feel the cool metal of the railing under his palms, feel hope and fear warring in his chest. Behind them, the elevator dinged. They both turned to see Tanaka Hiroshi, their head of security, stepping out. He was a Japanese man in his mid-40s, compact and efficient, with eyes that missed nothing. He'd been with them for 15 years, had watched them build their empire, had been there the night of the poisoning, had visited them every day in the hospital. He knew what the past 3 years had cost them. Boss Park, Boss Lee. Hiroshi bowed slightly. The dancer will be here in 5 minutes. She's changing out of her stage costume. What's her name? Jihun asked. She goes by Amara on stage. Amara Johnson. Started working here 2 weeks ago. Background? From Botswana. Been in the States for about 2 years. Clean record. No connections to any organizations or families we need to worry about. She's sending most of her money back home to family. Jihun nodded, filing away the information. When she gets here, give us privacy. Understood. Hiroshi paused, his sharp eyes studying both of them. If I may ask, is everything all right? You both look different. Min-jae supplied. Alive, Hiroshi said softly. You both look alive again. The words hung in the air between them. Hiroshi had never said it out loud, but he'd watched them deteriorate over the past 3 years. Watched them go through the motions of living while slowly dying inside. He'd been loyal, never questioning, never pushing, but the concern had always been there in his eyes. Maybe we are, Jihun said quietly. Maybe we finally are. Hiroshi's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his gaze.
Hope, maybe.
Or worry about what would happen if this turned out to be temporary. He bowed again and moved to stand by the elevator, a silent sentinel. The next 5 minutes felt like 5 hours. Jihun paced the length of the VIP booth, unable to stand still. Every step sent a sensation shooting up through his legs. He could feel the floor beneath his feet, feel the way his muscles contracted and released with each movement. It was overwhelming and glorious and terrifying all at once. Min-jae had returned to his seat but couldn't seem to stop moving his hands, flexing his fingers, touching the table, the glass, his own face, like he was rediscovering what physical sensation felt like. What if she can't do it again? Min-jae asked suddenly. What if it was just a one-time thing? A fluke? Then we figure out why, Jihun said firmly. We figured out what it was about that moment, that performance that broke through. And we find a way to make it happen again. And if we can't? Jihun stopped pacing and looked at his best friend, his brother, the only person in the world who truly understood what the past 3 years had been like. Then at least we know it's possible. At least we know we're not completely broken. The elevator dinged again. Both men turned, their hearts racing, as Tanaka Hiroshi stepped aside to let someone pass. And there she was. Up close, she was even more beautiful than she'd been on stage. She'd changed into a simple yellow dress that fell just above her knees, had pulled her curls back into a ponytail. Without the stage makeup and dramatic lighting, she looked younger, more vulnerable. Her brown eyes were wide and cautious as she stepped into the VIP booth, her hands clutching a small purse. The moment she entered the space, the sensations flooding through Jihun intensified. Heat washed over his skin. His heart rate kicked up another notch. Every nerve ending seemed to light up at once. Beside him, he heard Minji's sharp intake of breath. Felt rather than saw his friend's body go rigid with the same overwhelming rush of feeling. It wasn't just the performance. It was her presence, her proximity. She was their cure. You wanted to see me? Her voice was soft, with an accent that confirmed Hiroshi's information. African, melodic, careful. Am I in trouble? Jihun realized they were both staring at her like she was a ghost, or an angel, or something they couldn't quite believe was real. He cleared his throat, trying to find words that wouldn't sound insane. No, he managed. You're not in trouble. Please sit down. He gestured to the leather couch that ran along one wall of the booth. Amara hesitated, her fingers twisting the fabric of her dress. She was nervous, he realized. Scared even. 2 powerful men had summoned her to their private booth. Of course she was scared. I promise, Min-jae added, his voice gentler than Jihun's. We just want to talk. You can leave whenever you want. That seemed to help. Some of the tension left her shoulders and she moved to the couch, perching on the edge like a bird ready to take flight at the first sign of danger. Smart girl. Jihun and Min-jae took seats across from her, close enough to feel the effect of her presence, but far enough not to crowd her. Hiroshi had moved to stand by the elevator, giving them privacy, but remaining within earshot if needed. Now that she was sitting in front of them, Jehun didn't know where to start. How did you explain to a stranger that she'd just accomplished the impossible? That her mere existence had broken through a curse that had stolen 3 years of their lives? Min-jae seemed to be having the same problem. They sat in awkward silence for a moment, both of them trying to find the right words. Amara broke the silence first. Is this about my performance? Because if I did something wrong on stage, I can fix it. I really need this job. Your performance was perfect, Jehun said quickly. More than perfect. Then I don't understand why I'm here. Jehun leaned forward, his elbows on his knees, his eyes locked on hers. He decided to just tell her the truth. What did they have to lose? 3 years ago, my friend and I were poisoned. Both of us. Same night, same poison. We nearly died. Our hearts stopped multiple times on the way to the hospital. The doctors managed to save our lives, but the poison did permanent damage to our nervous systems. He watched her face, saw confusion mixed with sympathy. We lost the ability to feel, Min-jae continued, picking up where Jehun left off. Emotions, physical sensations, everything. It all just disappeared. We've been living like ghosts for 3 years, going through the motions of life, but not actually feeling alive. Amara's eyes widened. That sounds horrible. It was worse than horrible, Jehun said quietly. It was hell. We tried everything. Different doctors, specialists from around the world, experimental treatments. Nothing worked. They told us the damage was permanent, that we'd spend the rest of our lives this way. I'm so sorry, Amara said softly, but I still don't understand what this has to do with me. Jehun took a deep breath. Tonight, when you stepped onto that stage, something happened. For the first time in 3 years, I felt my heart beat. Really beat. I felt heat spread through my body. I felt sensation in my skin. I felt. He trailed off, not sure how to explain the rest without sounding like a complete pervert. We felt everything, Min-jae finished. Emotions, physical responses, all of it came rushing back the moment we saw you. Amara stared at them like they'd lost their minds. You're saying that watching me dance cured you? We don't know if it's permanent, Jehun admitted. We don't know how or why it works. But yes, when you're near us, we can feel again. She stood up abruptly, backing toward the elevator. This is crazy. You're both crazy. I should go. Wait. Min-jae stood too, his hands raised in a calming gesture. Please, just hear us out. Hear you out about what? You think I have some kind of magical healing powers? That's insane. We know how it sounds, Jehun said, standing as well. Trust me, we know. But it's the truth. And we can prove it. He moved toward her slowly, watching her eyes. She didn't run, but she looked like she wanted to. When he was close enough that only a few feet separated them, he stopped. Touch my hand, he said quietly, holding out his palm. The one that had been bleeding from the broken glass. Hiroshi had bandaged it quickly, but blood had already seeped through the white gauze. What? Just touch my hand, please. Amara looked between his face and his outstretched hand, clearly trying to decide if this was some kind of trap. Finally, probably because Hiroshi was watching and she felt slightly safer with a witness, she reached out and placed her fingers on his palm. The contact sent lightning shooting up Jehun's arm. He gasped, his whole body going rigid. Heat exploded from the point of contact, racing through his veins like fire. His heart slammed against his ribs. His breath came faster. And lower, much lower, his body responded with an intensity that was almost painful. He'd forgotten what desire felt like. Forgotten the primal hunger that could make a man lose all rational thought. For 3 years, he'd been completely dead below the waist. No arousal, no interest, no response to any stimulation. Now, from just the simple touch of this woman's fingers on his palm, he was harder than he'd been in his entire life. Amara must have seen something in his face because she jerked her hand back like she'd been burned. What just happened? I felt it. Jehun's voice came out rough, almost pained. All of it. Your touch, the heat of your skin, everything. Before I continue, I need to pause here for a moment. If you're enjoying this story, if you want to see what happens next between Jaehoon, Min-jae, and Amara, please hit that subscribe button. I pour my heart into creating these Afro-Korean stories for you, staying up late, researching, writing, editing, all to bring you the best content. But YouTube's algorithm only shows my videos to people when channels have strong subscriber numbers. So if you're watching without subscribing, you're making it harder for me to reach others who would love these stories as much as you do. It takes 2 seconds to subscribe, but it makes a world of difference to creators like me. Don't let this be the last story you see from this channel because you forgot to click that button. Subscribe now, and let's continue. Min-jae moved to join them, his presence adding another layer to the charged atmosphere. "My turn," he said softly. He reached out and took Amara's other hand before she could protest. The reaction was instantaneous. Color flooded his face. His pupils dilated. His breathing became ragged. And the look on his face was one of such profound relief and overwhelming sensation that it was almost painful to witness. "Oh God," Min-jae whispered. "It's real. It's really real." Amara pulled both her hands back, stumbling away from them until her back hit the wall near the elevator. She looked between both men, with something like fear in her eyes. This is impossible. People don't have the power to heal other people just by being near them. "And yet here we are," Jaehoon said, "feeling things we thought we'd never feel again. What do you want from me?" Her voice trembled slightly. That was the question, wasn't it? What did they want? What could they possibly ask of this stranger who had no obligation to them, who probably thought they were both completely insane? Jaehoon exchanged a look with Min-jae. They'd built their empire on the ability to read each other's thoughts, to communicate without words. In that moment, they both knew what they needed to do. "Have dinner with us," Min-jae said. "Tomorrow night. Let us try to understand what's happening. In exchange, we'll pay you $50,000. Amara's eyes went huge. $50,000 for dinner? For your time, Jaehoon clarified. For giving us a chance to figure out if you really are our cure. If there's even a possibility that you could give us our lives back. She stared at them like they'd grown second heads. You're serious. Completely serious. Jaehoon pulled out his phone. Give me your number. We'll transfer half now, as a show of good faith. The other half after dinner tomorrow, whether anything comes of it or not. You keep the money either way. This is insane, Amara whispered. But she was considering it. They could see the wheels turning in her mind, see her weighing the risks against the reward. $25,000, Min-jae said gently. Transferred to your account right now. Just for agreeing to have dinner with us tomorrow. No strings attached. If you decide you don't want to see us again after tomorrow, that's fine. You keep the money. She bit her lip, clearly torn. Why would you pay that much just to have dinner with me? Because you're giving us something priceless, Jaehoon said quietly. You're giving us hope. After 3 years of nothing, of being dead inside, you walked into our world and made us feel human again. If there's even a chance that you can keep doing that you can give us our lives back, then $50,000 is nothing. Silence stretched between them. Jaehoon could hear his own heartbeat, feel the blood rushing through his veins, feel the hope and fear and desperate need churning in his gut. Please, he thought. Please say yes. Finally, Amara straightened her shoulders and lifted her chin. There was something fierce in her eyes now, something strong and brave that made Jaehoon's respect for her grow. Just dinner, she said firmly. Somewhere public. A restaurant. Agreed, Min-jae said immediately. And you transfer the first half before I leave here tonight. Of course. Jaehoon was already opening his banking app. She recited her phone number and he typed it in, then pulled up the transfer screen. How do you spell your last name? He typed it in, confirmed the amount, $25,000, and hit send. The transaction processed in seconds. Amara's phone buzzed in her purse. She pulled it out, her hands shaking slightly, and stared at the screen. Her face went pale. Oh my God, she whispered. This is real money. Real actual money. We keep our word, Jaehoon said. Always. She looked up at them, her eyes shining with what looked like tears. My mother is sick. Back in Botswana. She needs surgery, but we can't afford it. This money could save her life. Something in Jehun's chest clenched. Not just attraction or need, but something deeper. This woman, this beautiful stranger who'd given them back their ability to feel, was using their money to save her mother's life. Then we're glad we could help, Min-jae said softly. Amara wiped at her eyes quickly, clearly embarrassed by the show of emotion. What time tomorrow? 7 p.m., Jehun said. We'll send a car to pick you up. What's your address? She hesitated, clearly not comfortable giving them that information yet. Smart girl. Or, Min-jae offered, we can pick you up from here. From the club. Here's fine, she agreed. It's a date then. Jehun smiled for the first time in 3 years. The expression felt strange on his face, like his muscles had forgotten how to form it. But it felt good. God, it felt so good to smile, and mean it. Amara moved toward the elevator, clearly ready to leave, but she paused at the threshold. Can I ask you something? Anything, Min-jae said. Do you feel it right now? Even though I'm about to leave? Yes, Jehun admitted. As long as you're in the room, we feel everything. And when I leave? We don't know, Min-jae said honestly. We're hoping it doesn't stop. But we won't know until you're gone. She nodded slowly, processing that information. Then she stepped into the elevator. Hiroshi followed her in, ready to escort her safely out of the building. The doors closed, and Jehun and Min-jae stood in the sudden silence of the VIP booth, both of them holding their breath, both of them terrified of what would happen next. 5 seconds passed. 10. 20. Jehun's heart was still pounding. He could still feel the blood rushing through his veins, still feel the heat in his skin, still feel the aching need in his body. It's not stopping, he said, his voice filled with wonder. Min-jae, it's not stopping. Min-jae let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. He sank down onto the couch, his hands covering his face. His shoulders shook. Jehun moved to sit beside him, placing a hand on his friend's shoulder. He could feel the warmth of Min-jae's body through his shirt and could feel his friend trembling. We're going to be okay, Jehun said quietly. After 3 years of hell, we're finally going to be okay. Min-jae looked up, his eyes red but filled with more emotion than Jehun had seen in years. What if it's temporary? What if by tomorrow, we're back to being numb? Then we will find her again, Jehun said firmly. We do whatever it takes to keep her in our lives. Because I can't go back to that emptiness, Min-jae. I can't go back to being dead inside. Not after feeling this alive. Neither can I, Min-jae agreed. Which means tomorrow's dinner is the most important meeting of our lives. They sat together in the VIP booth as the club continued to pulse with music and life below them. For the first time in 3 years, they weren't just existing. They were living. They were feeling. They were human again. And it was all because of her. Amara Johnson from Botswana, a dancer trying to save her mother's life, had accomplished what the best doctors in the world couldn't. She'd given them back their humanity. Now they just had to convince her to keep doing it. The next morning, Jehun woke up in his penthouse apartment and immediately checked his body for signs that the miracle had faded. He pressed his fingers against his arm, feeling the pressure. Pinched his skin, feeling the sharp sting. His heart was beating steadily in his chest. He could feel the cool air from the AC, the soft sheets against his skin, the morning light warming his face. It was still there. All of it. He grabbed his phone and saw a text from Min-jae, sent at 5:47 a.m. Still feeling everything. Can't sleep. This is real. Jehun smiled and typed back. Same. We need to prepare for tonight. This can't go wrong. Agreed. My place at noon. I'll be there. Jehun got out of bed and walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked downtown Los Angeles. The city stretched out before him, alive and vibrant in the morning sun. He'd looked at this view every morning for 3 years, but he hadn't really seen it, hadn't appreciated the beauty of it, the way the light caught the glass buildings, the way the streets below teemed with life. Now he saw all of it. I felt all of it. and he wanted to weep with gratitude.
His phone rang.
Hiroshi. Boss, I have a full background check on Amara Johnson. Should I send it over?
Yes.
And Hiroshi. Yes, boss. Thank you. For last night. For understanding. There was a pause. You and Boss Lee have given me 15 years of loyalty and fair treatment. Seeing you both come back to life last night, that's all the thanks I need. I'll send the report now. The call ended and Jahun's phone buzzed with an incoming file. He opened it and began to read. Amara Johnson, 26 years old, from Gaborone, Botswana. I came to the United States 2 years ago on a work visa. No criminal record. No connections to any organizations or families that posed a threat. She lived in a small apartment in Koreatown with 2 roommates, both also from African countries. She worked at Velvet Sanctuary 4 nights a week and picked up shifts at a coffee shop during the day.